Hey, this is Nader here with NastyNateTV, and today I'm going to give you our first impressions of the new set that came out, Qpid. But first, I want to introduce the guest we have on today. The guest is Lucas Thompson, goes by the name of Edge of Hearing on the message boards. So, Lucas, welcome to NastyNateTV.
Oh, thanks for having me.
So, Lucas, where are you from, real quick?
I live up in Massachusetts in the Romulus region. Play. We got a core group of a few players up here.
And do you guys all live in the same city, or do you guys have to kind of come together every so often?
We're spread out a bit, but Massachusetts isn't that big, so it's not too.
Sure, sure. So you wrote the Road to Worlds articles, and those are fantastic articles during the course of championship season. But more recently, I've seen you creating these full art 3D cards that you've been posting on the forums, and they look beautiful.
Well, thank you. It kind of started as I want to see if test the waters for maybe running a Masters in Massachusetts next year. And so uh, I was thinking, what can I do to try to hype up our regional and see if I could maybe tempt some people nearby to actually come out and play. So what can I make that might be a interesting, unique prize.
Oh,
And
so
that's
you're giving away for prize support.
Yeah, I think the 3D cards, yeah, they're fun, but I don't know, my craftsmanship isn't quite as good as I'd like on those. But the full art cards are coming out quite pretty. Found some foil paper I can print them on that works out pretty well, even on an inkjet printer. I'm pretty pleased with how they.
Cool, cool. Do you have a favorite? What's your favorite one you've made?
Oh, definitely the Romulus headquarters one because I had to build a lot of the template from scratch because I made it as a landscape card rather than portrait format. So I had to put a lot of work into that one to actually make it look decent.
Nice. And is that want to be one of the prizes,
Yeah, I
or is that
figure
for
for
you?
yeah for the Romulus regional, I gotta have Romulus as one of the prizes.
Great, great. So yeah, if you're in the area and you want to check out that event, I'll go look into that. Some nice prize support for sure. So anyway, Lucas, I've had you on today because we're going to talk about this latest set that got released, and this is the Qpid expansion. This came out in Valentine's Day in 2019. We're recording 2 days after that, and this will be available next week. It's a a 9 card boutique set. Lucas, have you had a chance to look at the cards?
Yeah. I've had a chance to go through them and kind of get at least some first impressions of them.
Sure, sure.
Several of them I'm looking forward to using. Unfortunately, not this weekend.
Yes. I don't like that rule. I think they right when they release them, they should just let them go available. But who knows? So are you all involved in the kind of the process of making the cards, whether on art, design, anything like that? Do you see the cards before they come out, or are you like me and you kind of just see them when they get released?
Yeah, so I am on design, so I do get to see them, but at the same time, when I wasn't working on this particular set, so I kind of try to back off since I'm not in charge of design. I'm just I'm a good soldier, and so I figured there's already a whole team working on this set. There are playtesters, there's design lead, there are plenty of people already working on it. I'm going to give them space, let them do their thing, and I'll enjoy them when they come out when I'm not actually on the set.
Sure, good. And so, do you know much about the boutique sets? Do they? I mean, they're small. They're a smaller number. I'm sure they probably don't take as many man hours to make as a 50 card set. Um, Do you have any insight into the differences between a normal size set versus a boutique set as a designer?
Well, yeah. So the first set I was on was kind of a boutique set, and that was the 50th anniversary set.
Hmm.
And one of the kind of the more difficult part about the boutique sets is they tend to be more top down. Like this, you're already coming at it from a the story perspective of of romance and Valentine's Day. And the 50th set, we were coming from the perspective of we want representation of each series and movie more so than affiliations or mechanics. So when you're doing this sort of set, it's actually there's a lot of research that goes into it to figure out you know what stories you want represented, but then also it's almost kind of harder to make the cards from that direction because you're coming at it from a almost backwards direction, which is also fun. But it's hard in a different way than maybe even a larger expansion that's more bottom up.
Right. So you're basically kind of forced to have all your cards fit this theme that you're going with in the boutique set, whereas a bigger expansion, you have a little more freedom. You can have some cards that fit one theme, some cards that can fit another theme.
Although at the same time, you have some gameplay thematic freedom too, which can also be difficult in its own way. But you have this freedom to it doesn't the gameplay themes don't always have to match up, which I think we see a nice variety here in Qpid on that front.
Yeah, so I mean, you can look at the title right now, and you got Qpid, right? So there's the Q, letter Q, which is of course our favorite TNG villain Q going in there. So you can imagine, even without looking at any of the cards, there's a Q theme going on. It comes out on Valentine's Day, and the title is Cupid, right? So obviously it's going to have some kind of love component to go along with that. So when I'm thinking about what this set's going to be, I'm like, well, there's going to be a bunch of cue cards. There's going to be a bunch of like partner type of cards going into it. 2E is a little different than 1E, where it doesn't have the romantic, the engaged personnel, or however it's termed in 1E. But that's kind of what I would have expected going in. Any? Oh, go ahead.
Yeah, no, I was gonna say, and you do see some of that, but it's there's also a variety of a few other things that I like seeing too.
Sure, sure. Okay, well, let's get into the cards because we're going to try to keep this short. So the next scene. All right, so we're starting off the set going from card 1 all the way to card 9, just in successive order. I think this is kind of roughly how the cards got revealed. I think they went from top to bottom, but I might be mistaken on that. Anyway, so the first card in the set is a bad case of Parmak. Am I? Is that the right way to say that? Parmak?
I'm not a native Klingon speaker. It sounds good to me.
All right, great, great. All right, a bad case of Parmak. Lucas, what's your first impressions of this card as you're looking at it?
Yeah, the first thing I'm comparing it to is a probably old differences because
Hmm.
when I'm looking at 3 cost for 2 stops, that's kind of my baseline card. That's the card I put in my demo decks because it's 3 cost for 2.
Right. That's kind of the expected result from a three-cost dual dilemma, right? You get
Right.
two random stops.
And of course, old differences isn't actually 3 cost, which you realize when you finally play against somebody with a 40-point mission.
Right, right. So yeah, it's like a three cost for two stops, and if you are the person attempting a 40-point mission, that dilemma becomes worse against you. I guess you can think of it that way.
Right. Just like this one will become worse if you're playing against like DS9 or Kling.
Right. So, when I was putting some notes on this card, I said the exact same thing. Using old difference as kind of the point of reference. Um, Now, when you compare this to old difference, you're looking at the extra draw into it. But what do you think of the first part, the choice stops versus old differences as a random selection?
I think in most cases the random will be better. There are someone pointed it out on the boards. There are cases like especially Starfleet where the being a choice will be better.
Mm,
Archer won't get in the way of this one.
yep.
But most of the time, how many times have we attempted a mission with multiple copies of the mission skills and that, the Chula the Chandra just hits all our astrometrics and we're, oh, great. Yeah. That random can really be a game changer.
Right. Yeah. You're definitely right on this one. I think other things you mentioned the Archer. There's uh, I think the wariness, the Romulan card that excludes random selections. So this could get around wariness, even though that's not super popular. There's the Terrak Nor event, which lets you exclude random selections. So there is opportunities for this card, I think, in that way. But like you
It'll
said,
never
it's
hit lore.
never hit lower. Yep. Um, so yeah, I mean, I think just from a strength perspective in that part of it, it's a little worse, but could have some options. Now, what I thought was a little weird as I was reading this card the first time, I was thinking, okay, so if I'm playing Cleon or TNG, or excuse me, Cleon or DS9, and I'm the owner of this dilemma, I get the draw out of it. But that's not actually how it works.
Right.
It's the
Yeah.
person facing the dilemma reads it as you. So I think it would have to me it would have made a lot more sense if it was instead of the player facing the dilemma gets to draw, it's the person who owns the dilemma gets to draw it. Then it's kind of a nice flavorful dilemma for Cleon and DS9.
Yeah, yeah, I guess it depends on what you're trying to punish. Whether you're, I guess, eh, Klingons are perennially good, and DS9's been quite good recently.
Sure, sure. Yeah, there was a bunch of those dilemmas. I don't know, set 8 or so that had they were specific for certain affiliations. They were like a random stop, and then if you had that headquarters, you got something flavorful for the affiliation. I kind of would have liked that. I like that. I like that idea. Those cards weren't particularly strong, um, but I like that idea, and I kind of wish there'd be more dilemmas like that. There's a few, but I wish there was more.
Yeah, it's a tough line, and I think the reason why they made those dilemmas so weak back so many sets ago is they the theory is you don't want dilemmas to be predictable. You don't want to sit down against Maquis and know that they're going to have that one specific dilemma that is the Maquis dilemma.
Sure.
Um, but at the same time, dilemmas are pretty predictable anyway. So I don't know where do you draw the line on that is kind of a tough call.
Sure, sure. All right, I think yeah, so my kind of conclusion from Bad Case of Parmak, decent, maybe not great, kind of maybe a meta choice.
Yeah, it would definitely be really good in the limited format too. If Old Differences ever gets Hall of Famed, or like if this shows up in a draft format, this would be a great.
Yeah. So yeah, in any case where you just need people stop, this isn't a bad dilemma for sure. All right, well let's move on to the next card. This is Hostile Takeover. This is it mirrors to me a lot like the card Surprise Amity. So the Surprise Amity is an interrupt that when you play it when your opponent solves a mission, if they have more points than you, it'll stop all their people. So this is a dilemma that has a gameplay text that is very similar to it, in my opinion. What's
Oh
your
yeah, no,
Lucas? What's your take from this card?
yeah, no. Surprise Amity is definitely the card to compare this to. You're it really it's if you're a deck that wants the Surprise Amity effect, but can't fit it in with the verbs you already have, and you do often stop people with many fewer dilemmas than the ones you drew, then this would be the card to use.
Definitely. Um, and I was thinking, it's I don't know how good it is because you kind of have to you kind of have to be behind to be able to play this, right? So you have to be playing a certain type of deck. But one of the things that I've been trying to think about, especially as you play interaction, you often want to have these personnel separated from the rest of the crew, right? So if you're playing like a battle deck, you want the personnel to be maybe stopped on a planet and the rest of the crew to be flown off somewhere else, so you can get an easy battles. So I
Yeah,
can
that's
see
a good call.
so I can see where that can come in here. Um, one of the
Yeah,
things like you can keep like a person gets stopped on a ship, and that ship moves to a planet mission. Now you have people on the ship. You can do a engagement at a planet mission and actually get something out of it uh, because there'll be people on the ship.
exactly. Even just like a Bajoran resistance deck would love to just
Yep.
have some 15-point targets sitting around. They're otherwise not, Bajoran resistance doesn't churn out a ton of personnel. They're not likely to have a huge strength advantage, but if you can just isolate a few people from this or from left behind, then that 15 points becomes a lot cheaper to acquire.
Yeah. Okay. So final synopsis: do you think this is a? Would you play this? Is this just it has to be in the right deck? Is this always a good? What are you thinking of it? What's your thoughts on it?
I do think it has to be in the right deck, although I think it's more that, like, it works well in a slower interactive deck. But I think, even just a focused solver, that it's just a good speed bump dilemma, assuming you're the style of player who likes to use like those the wall dilemmas. Like if you like rapid progress, this is an easy one to put in with rapid progress to just get it on the mission and then stop the crew, and then on a when they finally solve, there's the speed bump hits them again.
Yeah, as we were just talking about this, I was thinking this kind of matches a lot of cards. There's a lot of dilemmas out there now that say like if you're, you know, as the person facing the dilemma, they hit you harder if you're winning in the game, right? And this is something similar as well. So you could even do a situation where you play, you give your opponent points from Guinan and then lose points to intentionally get them ahead of you. There's also an interrupt that destroys an event that gives your opponent points. I forget the name of it.
Yeah, I'm blanking on that name
Yeah.
too.
But so you could design a deck where you intentionally give your opponent 5 points early in the game. So now all these dilemmas are hitting them a little harder kind of throughout the game, even though 5 points might not be the difference between the game. When it after like the second or third or after like the second mission gets solved or something like that.
Sense of obligation.
Sense of
Thought of
obligation.
it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Thanks. All right. Well, let's move on to the next one. Uh, nothing to lose. So, Lucas, is this the best wall ever created?
So, what this dilemma makes me think of is Outclassed, except, and the reason, in part, it makes me think of Outclassed is because a lot of the affiliations that get a pass on Outclassed are the ones who are actually going to not have as difficult a time with this. All the blue decks, the ones that are likely to just run a few EMH programs or um, uh, 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 Sigmund Freud, just to have an easy hologram to discard. Those are the ones that have a real hard time including a weapons 9 ship in them, and this is not going to be as hard a wall for them, but it's going to be a really hard wall for the Romulans and for I guess Klingons sometimes use the Kawav.
Mm.
Uh, Really hard wall for Borg, who always walk through Outclassed. So I think I think it feels a lot like that dilemma to me.
So I was trying to think about the wording on this. Is it so you have to have one of these personnel in the mission attempt to pass this? So I have to have a hologram in the attempt. I have to have an acquisition personnel in the attempt, or I just have to have one of them somewhere.
Yeah, they got to be in the
Oh, they
attempt.
got to be in the attempt. So I can't
Yeah,
just
other
play like Durg and set him at my headquarters all game.
yeah, I think for especially for the like the anything that you're discarding somebody, if you're choosing anything on a dilemma, it's default. It's going to be in the crew
Okay.
unless it says.
Okay. Yeah, because I don't know. It was like unless you have. I don't know. Okay, maybe I'm reading too much into the wording on this card.
Well, you know, and it's the same. Like the first time I saw the fractured time dilemma, I was like randomly select 9 personnel. All your other ones are removed from the game. And the first time I saw that, I was like, all of your other personnel, all the
Oh,
ones on the other ships, but yeah, every now and then a dilemma leans on that wording to really it's just the people in the crew that the dilemma default affects.
okay. Well, that's good to know. So the one thing that I think is maybe not obvious about the card is that the first like completing the first part of the requirement is much better than completing the second part because the second part actually is becomes a filter.
Yes.
And if you're let's say you're playing one hologram in your deck just to get around this card, the first time you hit it, you lose that hologram. The next time you hit this wall, let's say your opponent's playing two of them, you don't have that hologram anymore.
Yeah, that's absolutely true, and I think it's the harder requirement to hit because a lot of, I was looking through a lot of the affiliations that have just that random acquisition, to acquisition to cot or whatever. The that's not integrity less than 4, and there are not a lot of ways to intentionally lose attribute points.
Yeah, so there are. I looked. There's 10 total non-aligned people that can meet this requirement, and none of them are particularly good, or they're kind of have like a deck they're supposed to go along with. They're like crime events or something like that. So it'll be interesting to see what happens with this. If people start, just kind of finding an easy way around it. A lot of people, run bridge officers to deal with it. I don't know. We'll see. I think it'll get played a lot. I think. Um,
Yeah, definitely a strong card. And I do, I but I do I just I've been frustrated by Outclassed for a long time because I just, between that and Moral Choice, every time I want to play a blue deck, it's just frustrating thinking, well, I'm gonna slog through a bunch of copies of those, and at least, I just throw the holograms I was going to use anyway in them, and this one won't hurt me as much as the Outclassed will.
you can play the alternate universe Wesley. That's the trick for the TNG if you want to play the D Enterprise D.
That's true.
I,
Yeah,
li- I like I like that Wesley. He's kind of surprising. Or you can play the E. I like a couple versions of the E.
yeah. No, the E is good, but it's, I don't know.
All right. Well, we're talking about Federation Starships has nothing to do with this card, so let's move on.
Okay.
All right. Next card is the event. It's one of two events in the set. It's Survival of the Fittest, and this goes into a con deck. Lucas, have you ever played con?
I have played it a couple times.
What did you think of it?
I think I have the achievement now.
That's
Um,
that's your conclusion from it. You have the achievement, never going back.
I mean, I don't know. Uh, it it does feel a bit different to play a con deck, and there's some people that just love it, and I'm glad it's there for them. I genuinely am, but it hasn't grabbed.
So as a con, I've never played con. As the player of it, what's the fun aspect of it? Is it just trying to circumvent these limitations? Is there something kind of mechanically fun about the deck?
I think yeah. For people who enjoy it, I think the challenge of playing with all the restrictions is just fun. I think also it's fun because it feels very different than just the tempo of the game, because you spend so many turns bashing your head against City Alpha 5, and then all of a sudden you solve that and the world is your oyster. You're just like, you can go anywhere, and all of your missions become so much easier once you can hide people on a ship. because your people have your attributes are high, all those your they're high cost, so none of those in development's not going to hit you ever,
Right. Yep.
and you just you send one real crew and then you send your four people to solve, and it's so much, but you just got to get through SETI Alpha 5 first.
Mm. Yeah, that's yeah. If to win the game you just have to beat through that frustration, I can imagine that's why a lot of players probably saw it and didn't go along with it. So if it is a fun, and it only gets fun the last turn of the game, but you've lost by that turn, which happens. Yeah, I could see why it's not as popular. Anyway, so
So yeah, so
let's talk about this card. So this is basically protection against Ducat and gives you kind of a pseudo headquarters. Is this neat? Was this needed? Was this uh, an event. So is this something you're gonna have to play three of in every con deck because you have to have this? What's your thoughts?
I think it is a useful card that I don't know that you necessarily need to play three of in a con deck, but kind of depending on your meta, if you have a lot of interactive players, or if you're bringing con to a big tournament, if you hate yourself or something, then you definitely want to include this card because you're gonna face some interaction, and this if you're going to face interaction, you want this card available.
No, yeah, yeah. I was just looking at it. I mean, the protection against being killed or captured at SETI Alpha, that would probably be a good counter against the Greg's Worlds winning deck that he shared with us a week ago.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Okay,
Yeah,
well, go ahead.
yeah, it'll be essential in a major tournament.
All right, if Khan's ever good, this is the card that's going to get him there. Okay. Let's move on to the next card. This is Transcendent Farewell. This is it has a similar effect to a couple cards that already exist. There's a Sulu, and I think there's a Harry Kim that kind of lets you place your ship at a mission. So this gets around kind of the range requirements you might have after you solve a mission. What's your thoughts on this card, Lucas?
I think the obvious place to put it is the Voyager deck, where it would be thematic in even because when playing five space Voyager, something that comes up a whole lot is those Delta Quadrant space missions, especially the good ones that are worth using, have high spans on them, and you find yourself, yeah, I can unstop with Homeward Bound, but I still can't get anywhere. So I think this could actually, and on top of being a core event, has synergy with Chakotay. So I think
Hmm.
this could definitely see play in a Voyager deck, particularly five space.
Yeah, I can see that. You almost wonder then, is it better than Exceed engine output? Doesn't have that would have a similar effect, I think, and it's zero
Yep,
cost. But yeah, but
that's
you put a damage marker on, so who knows? I mean, maybe you don't want to do that as Voyager without anywhere to hide.
possibly not.
Yeah.
It's again, this would much like the last card we looked at. This would be a safer option if you're worried about interaction. If you're not worried about interaction, then absolutely, Exceed engine
Mhm.
output is going to be cheaper and a little more flexible to use. You don't need to have just solved a mission to use it.
Right, right.
You don't need to lose a telepathy to use it. But this won't put a damage marker on your ship, and in the right tournament, that'll be a huge advantage.
The Voyager makes sense. I was I wasn't kind of thinking, sometimes Space Voyager, if you start at one space mission, you move to another one, solve that, in that same turn, you want to be able to move to that third mission on that turn, and I think this card, or ones like would be the only way to do that.
Yeah, especially with the new Chakotay, newer Chakotay. He makes that fourth mission so much easier. Just that little bit of attribute requirement reduction goes a long way. I found in in game experience.
Yeah, definitely. The other affiliation I thought could use this is Romulan have a couple telepathy people that are good. The Viceroy, which sees a lot of play in either version, and then there's a Deanna Troy that has telepathy, and Romulans have sometimes they have range issues. So this was one thing, and it's an event that plays in your core. So this is one thing I thought could see in that
Oh
deck,
yeah.
but I don't know. I think you're probably right. I think Voyager's the way to go.
Uh, yeah, no, definitely Voyager would be the first place I put it. But you're right. I could see this, especially in like played a dissident Romulan Cardassian deck that
Oh,
used that Troy.
yeah.
Um,
Oh,
you
yeah.
I copied it from Greg Hodgins in Atlanta, and you get the 5 points from the Romulan stuff, and you use it on Kira to just get
Hmm.
beefy dissidents in play fast, and that includes you get Troy out, and it of course has the Viceroy, because why would you not use the Viceroy? And mobility is always going to be an issue when you're using multiple headquarters.
Yeah, that's a great call on that one. Uh, yeah, and that those decks usually don't have any trouble getting people out. It's usually ships, I think, in range and flying to all those headquarters. So I think you're exactly right on that. All right, well let's move on to the next one. I think this is the only interrupt in the set. This is strictly business. And so I first saw this, and I'm reading through it. I'm like, oh my god, this is going to be such a powerful card until I get to the last three words at this mission.
Yep.
Uh,
That
Luke,
was exactly my experience.
so what's I mean, so okay, well we can't play with the hypothetical if this wasn't at your mission, but if it was just now it has to be. We have to pretend where we have to play the card like it's written. So what do you think of it? Is it doable?
I think it's a fun card. I think there's a forum thread about it too, where people were saying it looks fun. Somebody pointed out, I think it was Nathan Miracle Guichu, pointed out that a lot of the Dabo Girl stuff you're doing, it actually Dabo, the event, doesn't actually care where they're stopped
Hmm.
when you spin the wheel, so you could just drop them off at a mission,
And
spin
Dabo
the
there.
wheel, leave them there, and strictly business them. I still think that definitely falls in the realm of a fun deck, but there's nothing wrong with that.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, I'm kind of the same way. That's the one thing I kind of thought with this is you try to get some Dabo girls, just set them around somewhere and have them, spin the wheel. I think that's probably the best way to do it. You know, you could try to go out with Romulans, right? So you could do stuff where like Greg's deck had shown where he follows people using blind spot. That's gonna be harder because none of those personnel, Orions, Ryzens, or Dabo girls can be played at the new Romulan headquarters. So I don't know if that's gonna work out for them either. So we'll,
Yeah,
we'll,
I,
we'll,
I think they've got more impactful interrupts if the Romulans are out there.
definitely. All right. Okay, let's move on to the next card. We have a new persona of Christine Chapel. Lucas, what do you think of this guy or this lady? Excuse me.
I'm always happy to see one cost personnel with useful skills and uh, reasonable. I think I in particular with Christine Chapel, I have often passed over her because she has honor,
Mm.
and I've never wanted for honor in a TOS deck. So I could probably see myself using this just on skills and attributes alone.
Yeah, I mean you're exactly right. One cost, six integrity, three skills. Definitely we'll see some play. So the other version, it costs one more, has honor and anthropology, and she retrieves TOS personnel. This personnel, if you use the upgrade, gains all the skills on a TOS personnel at the mission. So the best use of her potentially is to have Willard Decker sitting down there at your headquarters and play her for three, and then she has 10 skills for one turn. Think that's worth it?
Depends. Do you have enough diplomacy for Gom to?
Yeah.
If you're ready to go out and he's your only diplomacy and she's sitting in your hand, I'd do it. I don't know how many other situations I'd do it, but I don't think it matters. I think I'm happy to have a honorless.
Yep. Yeah, like most TOS kind of upgrades, they're very situational, and I totally agree with you on this one. It's pretty.
Which is completely fine. I'm happy to have them be situational like that.
All right. All right. Well, let's move on to the last two, and they're kind of a pair. So we'll go over one, and then we can go over them as a pair. So the first one is we have. Let's see. We have a new version of Jean-Luc Picard, the Robin Hood. Um, Lucas, what's your first impressions of this one?
Uh, do you know of any TNG decks that like to have five?
They like to have 5 points.
Yeah, just curious if you knew of any TNG decks that like to have 5 point.
There's a few, I think.
Yeah, I see that being useful. To that said, he's got a lot of competition as a Picard too. So
Hmm.
that's, I mean, it's good. It is always going to be hard to choose any given Picard because there are a lot of good.
Yeah, that's why if you're watching the video right now, that's why the card is a little off-centered compared to all the other ones because there's so many other Picards on the the screen that I have that pushes this one out. Yeah, I think you're right on this one. This is actually kind of interesting. The second version of Picard that's a Q keyword. So that's kind of the his one unique characteristic. Before now, he's the only one with two persona that are Q. And I think one thing that TNG lacks that they kind of like is security. So the security on him I think, is a real uh, boon for certain TNG decks.
So that's actually a really good point I hadn't thought about because you're right. That's often something that I find myself lacking at the last minute when I'm building a team.
Yeah, and the other thing I think that's nice about him is he has both honor and leadership, and you kind of want him to get stopped. So he'll get stopped both personal duty and issue of trust. So he very likely to get stopped and get you those extra points.
Yeah, that's also a useful aspect there.
So someone wrote, "What the hell? Why doesn't he have thief keyword? What do you think on that?"
Did you see the response from Sean? I think he had
Oh,
a
I might
he
have
had a
missed
good
it.
point. Yeah, I actually, it was just I just saw it this morning or something. He had a very well thought out response about um, Picard doesn't actually do any. I guess unless rescuing Vosh counts as stealing, he doesn't
Hmm.
actually do any stealing in the episode.
Fair enough.
Um, and there are very few honor and high integrity personnel with thief in the game to start out with.
Mm.
I think he's not a thief, so I'm okay with him not having thief. That said, I wouldn't care if he did have thief either. That would be fine too, and it probably wouldn't be gameplay relevant anyway.
Right. What I don't like is I don't like his subtitle isn't Robin Hood. What the hell? Reluctant swashbuckler. It should be Robin Hood. All
He was a
right.
swashbuckler at heart.
Yeah. All right, so we're going to the next in this pair, and we'll talk about her individually, and then we can talk about them as a group. We have the new version of Vash, also a keyword personnel, and plays off with Picard. So, like the Picard download is able to download Vash, Vash is able to download Picard. Lucas, what do you think of this one?
I think it's a good card. I think that do you have? I can't actually see the video. I imagine you just have her page pulled up right now. Is that
Yeah, I just a zoom in with
the
like her as a card.
okay? Because the personae to the right of her,
Hmm.
it's gonna be hard to pick her over that one. Um, that two cost, you get the extra draw with the Jean-Luc Picard who just downloaded her anyway. Um,
All right, let me hold on. Let me pull up the other one here real quick. Okay, so this is the version that you're talking about right now on the video.
yeah, and it's got like Picard's a tough pick between the two of those. I think this, especially, I know you're saying evaluate them individually, but
Hmm.
it's tough to,
Right.
because actually both versions of her call out Jean-Luc Picard, but
Hmm. Oh yeah. Yep.
this one is the non-aligned one is going to have that immediate impact, and I think that I'm going to spend Picard's 5 points elsewhere. He's going to let Q kill.
I
Romance is dead, and he'll just, yeah, I think that's what's going to happen.
so I am totally in agreement with you, but I will kind of uh, add one comment to that. So I think you're right. I think if you're playing the Robin Hood Picard, you'd probably want this version because this one is just going to, you play her immediately, you get two draws from it, so she basically plays for nothing, equivalently for nothing. And then you get a retrieval out of your discard from it, right? So she's going to be a very obvious pick with Picard, the Robin Hood Picard, I think, where, going back to the version that's just come out here, this one will prevent her from getting killed or captured if you have 5 points, which isn't
That's
nothing,
true.
but it's not that strong on its own. I think what makes this version of Vash good is that she can download Picard. Now you might play this version of Ash, but not the Robin Hood version of Picard because a lot of the other Picards are really good on their own.
I hadn't thought about that at all, and you're absolutely right. Yeah, if you're going for that download chain, you're getting Genial Captain to get the diplomatic envoy to get your 2 mission win, then Vosh is one more way to start that chain going. And she's you're going to get 5 extra points from the ship too. So maybe she shows up. It's interesting though that the two of them might go for other versions, and I like that that's an option.
Yeah, I kind of think that would be the way to go, and then there's another, there's Vintner, right? So another way to get Vintner out if you're playing a Vintner deck. The I think TNG decks right now run Spock, the 4 cost Spock just to get Vintner, and that
Yep.
that gives your opponent a download. So this is actually a better, more efficient way to get another way to get your Vintner out if you want that. And like you said, if you just when you want to get the ship out, um, you can play you can use her to get the genial captain. If you're playing a bigger TNG deck where you have big personnel and you want to save them a lot, you can go get the Argo pilot Picard with her, and you have a lot. You can download escapes. So I think I don't think these two are best paired together, but they're both good individually because they can pair with their other versions.
And that was kind of the theme of the episode too. They weren't best paired together.
That's probably a good point. Also, hey, I was looking at this. You have the nothing to lose, that great wall we were talking about. You should just give her acquisition. Then she could have been a way for TNG to pass that dilemma.
That's true. Yeah,
I would have liked
she
that,
could
I
have.
guess.
Oh yeah, and any time you can have somebody with anthropology also have acquisition, that's a win because of that. Accelerated aging drives me nuts.
Oh God, talk about one of the worst dilemmas. We got a 1E dilemma in 2E, but
Yeah, no kidding.
yeah, I'm totally on board with that. All right, so let's go to final overall impressions. Lucas, what do you think so far about what do you think of the whole expansion as a whole, from the gameplay of the cards to the theme? What's your overall opinion?
I like the theme. It's fun. I think there's some competitive cards. There's some fun cards. There are some just good cards. I several of these cards, especially for just a small 9 card set. There's a good number of cards that I'm ready to use, and I wish I could use tomorrow.
Good, good. Yeah, I mean, I kind of had I similar. As the set as a whole, I didn't find a lot of interesting stuff. I'm mostly thinking about just power level cards. So the cards were a little on the weaker side, but I think some of the mechanics could be good. Um, the more the fun mechanics we talked about. Yeah, I don't. We'll see it. We'll see what people do with that. Um, I was kind of surprised there was only two cue cards in the set. What did you think of that? You had a Qpid name. I thought maybe three, four, two seems low. What do you think?
The name of the set is picked significantly after the cards are finalized.
Oh,
That happened. Creative makes that decision. Um, and I think it's a perfectly good name for a Valentine's. I think it would be hard to come up with an episode title name more suited to a Valentine's set.
oh yeah.
So I think it, especially since it already has the Picard Vosh combo, and I think it's a perfectly um, matching name for the set. That said, I could definitely see where you're coming from, getting the set and the name at the same time, or even the we get the name first, and then seeing only a couple cue cards. But I think it sets up some interest. Someone was mentioning, I think it was Ashby was mentioning there's a Riker who I haven't used yet, but he interacts with cue cards in some way. I
You know,
while we were talking about other things, I was trying to look him up, and I haven't found him yet.
I think he says something where you discard a cue card and you can gain a skill in the mission or something like that.
And that's
Some,
already a
something.
TNG card.
Yeah, it's like facing.
Fa- Facing Apotheosis.
Yeah.
Yeah, there we go. He's in set. He's in 0 hour, and yeah, you make him lose. Discard a cue card from hand to make him lose honor and gain a skill required by your mission. Required by this mission until the end of this mission attempt, which is useful. And I see that as we're slowly building a Q sub theme in TNG, without really boxing it in. So
Mm-hmm.
we got directions that could go, and I'm happy to see that because Q is fun.
Yeah, it'd be cool, and maybe people start playing that. The what is it? The mission that downloads a cue card. It's from.
Oh yeah, from Fractured Time.
Yeah, it's the anti-time anomaly mission. Collapse anti-time anomaly. That'd be fun.
Yeah, absolutely.
So one of the things I noticed, and then kind of my last impression of it, is so you kind of expect the theme to be about love and presumably about long-lasting love, but I've found that most of the cards in the set are actually based on like kind of spurned love, right? So there's the Picard and Vash, they're kind of spurned lovers in that situation. Uh, the the Kess, the image of Kess as she's going away is kind of like failed love and all these things.
And that brutal Barclay burn.
Yeah, and the Dabo Girls one with Barkley. So I don't know. I mean, I think that I kind of wonder if the designers maybe they've had some spurned love in their history, and so maybe they're have uh,
Well,
negative feelings about Valentine's Day a little bit.
that's certainly possible. I think that it's probably more possible that that's just how, on average, romance gets
Yeah,
portrayed in Trek.
yeah,
Like, you know, we've got especially because Trek is episodic, the romances have to end in 45 minutes, and I think that's why that's just the representation. Especially the dilemmas. I don't think they, for the most part, started with the story. They go in with playtest titles, and they're you can, bad case of Parmok. It's definitely related to that story when you're stopping Klingons to get draws, but the actual storyline that it ends up getting once creative takes a look at the set and gives it titles and so forth. Um, that can then they're looking at the palette of what does Trek have to say about romance, and it's not very positive.
Well, I don't know.
Yeah.
You watched it as a teenager, so you kind of had this. At least I did as a teenager, so maybe fits
Yeah,
into what my lifestyle was like as a teenager.
yeah. I mean, what else is out there? Jordy and Leia Brahms. That's not. That's quite cringy now.
Yeah, it's a little weird.